kind of like a cat and an old man combined. Oh, I think that's the kind of dog Michael has. She held her hand over the mouthpiece and asked Michael, her funny gay co-worker, if Buster was a Boston Terrier. I heard him say yes and start espousing his virtues. Then she asked me if I wanted to know where he got it. Sure, I said, and waited while she got the breeder's name and number, thinking that this all figured into the magic. I mean, what were the chances that a guy who worked in Barbara's office had the very same kind of dog I dreamed about? I did some research on Boston Terriers to see if they'd work as an apartment dog and what their shedding ratio was. I was in luck. In the book, Finding the Breed That's Right for You, Boston's got 5 out of 5 stars in the categories of apartment suitability and hypoallergenicity. I found out that the Boston Terrier originated when an English Bulldog and an English Terrier were bred, and then the product was bred with a Bulldog. Though they were not intentionally bred for it, Bostons have a very pronounced loyalty to their masters. Because they looked like they were wearing tuxedos, they were nicknamed the American Gentleman. Though I'm not the formal type, their look was very appealing to me. I'd seen them in early silent films, and they felt old-fashioned and classic. They were kind of like Harold Lloyd as dog. And they were very popular around New York City during my grandparents' childhood, which made them even more comforting to me. A few days later, armed with my vast knowledge of Bostons, I gave the breeder a call. "We're not doing Boston puppies anytime soon. We're concentrating on Frenchies," she said, referring to the Boston's cousin, the French Bulldog. "But we're involved with Boston Terrier Rescue. Do you know what that is?" I said yes, even though I didn't. I sort of figured it had to do with rescuing Boston Terriers in peril. You know, stuck up in trees, stranded on ice floes. "We're fostering a young male, about a year and a half, and the people who were supposed to take him never showed up. She said he'd been on the street for a long time when he was brought into the shelter in the winter. He still had summer fleas and mange and was skin and bones. They were nursing him back to health, and with all he'd been through, he'd never, not once, had an accident in the house. He really is a wonderful dog," she said, adding, "all he really needs is a little love," which made me imagine the dog version of the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. We've been calling him Buddy. His ears droop over. He's definitely not show quality, but if you don't care about that, then he's perfect. While I talked to her, I wrote down on a piece of paper, ears, show quality, and Buddy. I don't know if I shouted, "I'll take him," or if it just felt like that. It turned out the people who stood him up the day before called a few minutes after me, but the breeder said it was too late. Another girl was coming to get him. Me. He was way out in Pennsylvania, though, and I had to get someone to drive me there. When I hung up, I said, "Am I getting a dog?" I was convinced that doing anything to shake up my world would help with the at-sea feeling permeating every aspect of my life. I really wanted to meet a guy, and all of the conventional ways, like hanging out in bookstores and coffee bars, and taking classes in biodiversity at the American Museum of Natural History, and the one I did most, sitting in my apartment watching TV, weren't working. I needed to find something to get me out and about that wasn't so contrived. I'd grown up with dogs, but they were huge English mastiffs that I was terribly allergic to. I liked them as much as you can like anyone whose mere presence gives you an acute asthma attack. Recently, I had started looking into the hypoallergenic breeds. Apparently, poodles were fine, but I wasn't crazy about them, despite the claims that they are the smartest breed of dog. I never understood how that was determined. Were they found by their owners hooking up Bunsen burners and pouring liquids into flasks? I believe that different dog breeds speak to different people. The first time I'd seen a Boston was in a black-and-white photo with the actor-comedian Chris Elliott that hung in his foyer. I babysat for his kids, and when they were asleep, I stared at the photo, captivated. When I asked